Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com with a bonus video for today's Market Monday. There was a Reddit thread not too long ago. I've heard it from other people at my local game store, just kind of getting whiffs of it here and there about the Pauper conspiracy. Now, I think I'm going to address this from my perspective and why I think that there's a misguided notion that there's some sort of conspiracy with Pauper. A lot of people are trying to compare Pauper right now. The prices of Pauper have been spiking a lot recently to that of Tiny Leaders, a format that I think was completely mismanaged and also was not ever officially sponsored by Magic the Gathering or Wizards of the Coast, which I think is a huge distinction between the two. Now, Tiny Leaders, I think, was about a year and a half ago now is when it was started to gain steam. And I think that it was November of 2014 was really the last time that the quote-unquote management ever really updated the format. So I think that the initial Tiny Leaders steam that we had would have continued on if Wizards A would have picked it up, and B, the original creators of Tiny Leader just wouldn't have just let it die, because that's exactly what they did. Now, I played Tiny Leaders for a bit. I built probably between, I would say, half a dozen to a dozen decks with the Tiny Leaders. And then just like it had a lot of initial popularity. And then when we started to figure out the metagame, then it kind of died off. And I just think there's a lot of mistakes with Tiny Leaders, a lot of things that needed to be addressed, and none of which was ever addressed. So that's one of the huge distinctions, the utter mismanagement of Tiny Leaders. Now, Pauper is in a classification of its own because it is a Wizard-sanctioned format that does have a ban list, an aggressive ban list, mind you, and does actually have a very diverse metagame. But what I think that is really what we're trying to do with the Pauper craze, or what the Pauper craze is all about right now, has less to do with this quote-unquote conspiracy between vendors and certain people trying to spike the price of Pauper, but more to do with Pauper leagues. Now, if we look at like the price increase of most of these cards, let's just pull up the Delver deck right here. They probably started exactly when the price increase, when leagues were announced. I think leagues are just brand new here with, it either came out between Battle for Zendikar or Oath of the Gatewatch, and now we've started to see this slight price increase for all of these staples, like even like Spire Golem and Ninja of the Deep Hours, which were very staples. Yep, right when Oath of the Gatewatch came out, then the price increases. So I'm under the impression that it's not a conspiracy. I don't think that there's this huge wave of vendors or local game stores trying to promote the format so that it actually sells. It's that people on Magic the Gathering Online started to build some Pauper decks because, hey, it's now in a really profitable leagues are very good. If anyone knows, the estimated value of leagues are above and beyond the dailies. They're above and beyond the 8-man queues or the 2-man queues, which are an absolute joke. If you're really looking for just value or consistency in value, leagues are the way to go. So now we have this format where people are like, hey, I'll try some Pauper. It doesn't cost me that much on MTGO to build a Pauper deck that I can actually participate in a league and play on my own time. I'll build one. So they build a Pauper deck, and they're having a lot of fun with their Pauper decks. So what's the next obvious choice is to bring that into paper. So now here's these MTGO players that go to their local game stores, start picking up a Pauper deck, and guess what they're doing? They're asking people to play them in Pauper. So now the non-MTGO people will be like, fine, if you want to play so bad, I'll build a Pauper deck. Oh, you creamed me with your Pauper deck that's finely tuned after tons of testing in MTGO. Oh, I'm going to go check out, see what I can build on it. Oh, the net decking starts happening and everyone starts buying into it. And I think that has more to do with it than, say, big YouTube channels promoting the format, which, mind you, that particular YouTuber has been playing Pauper for years and years and years, and the last time he promoted it, it didn't have any sort of change in people buying into Pauper. It really is that now you can start seeing a lot more statistics, a lot more data, a lot more just people playing it with the leagues that have been coming out. I mean, look, these are filling up quite big. If you actually look at the amount of Pauper players in the leagues, it's very comparable to both standard and modern. So, and it has a very diverse metagame. Finally, the ban list has been, I think it's right on point. We have the right number of cards banned, and there isn't like an overwhelming archetype. Delver is still very, very good, but it's just blue control decks, blue temple decks usually have a broader range of decks that are either okay, good, or really good against, whereas some of these like Affinity, Goblins, and Control have very specific matchups they're doing good against. So That's just my opinion. I'd like to hear everyone's opinion on the Pauper format. Is it a conspiracy? Is it just these big bad vendors trying to find some sort of silver lining with their overstock of common cards? I guess that's to be determined. But the Reddit post, I'll have to find the link, maybe link it in the description, was just a lot of haters with the format. Now, I particularly finally just started playing Pauper. I failed miserably. I have a deck coming out, a sponsored video by MTGO Traders that I'm going to hurry and publish. It's been on the back burner for quite a while now, but it just shows you how to get into the Pauper format. But I actually had a lot of fun, and it was really my deck was terrible, not really the format was terrible. I consistently got my opponents down to like 2 or 3 life before finally getting either controlled or burned out or aggroed out before I could do that finishing touches. And I think that the game has a ton of room to grow, and Innistrad has some very, very sweet comments that I think are going to spice up the format. So after playing the format, again, I've only played a few rounds here and there. I played it like a year ago, 2 years ago. Every now and again I'll get back into the format and try my luck at brewing something. I have enjoyed the Pauper metagame. I think that it is, it definitely does limit you, but I actually like limitations. You can't really, like, I was trying to find a good draw spell in Pauper, and there really isn't anything that draws over 3 cards. It's very, very tough to draw or do like a really high combo deck. With the ban list, they banned out a lot of the combo pieces that allow you to do so, but there's still some really cool cards that I think that like most of the living end cards are legal in Pauper, and no one's built like some sort of this living end, of course living end, but a reanimation type strategy where you want cards in your graveyard. So anyway, I highly suggest you check out Pauper. I highly suggest you don't buy into the whole conspiracy theory that Pauper is just these big bad evil vendors. And anytime a format is allowed or legal or actually supported, you're going to see price increases. That's just the name of the game. So let's just go ahead and look right now. If you go over to MTG Goldfish, they actually do have a movers and shakers for the Pauper format. A lot of the time the paper is bugged and it doesn't show anything. I hope that they can fix that out with MTG Goldfish, but today it's showing some price increases of like cards like Journey to Nowhere and all of these. But if you go into online, it does a very good job at showing kind of like these online price changes. Now I hope that one thing that Wizards can do is they can make a Pauper, like if they're going to solidify Pauper in paper, it's going to have to take the Wizards finally does make a ban list for specifically paper, or if they say that you have to just follow the terms of on MTGO, that only cards that are printed in common on MTGO are what's legal in the paper format. Because we have some weird cards like Hymn to Torak that have never been printed as a common on MTGO, but they definitely were a common in paper. I think there's more than a few of those cards actually. So I'll need some kind of collaboration with Wizards to make it more of a paper-defined format. But who knows, if they ever were to make, say, a Pauper Pro Tour, which a lot of people I think would enjoy because it would just freshen up the game, or if they would ever just maybe even a Grand Prix or just a larger tournament, then we're going to really see the Pauper prices spiking. So in conclusion, my verdict is that Pauper is not another Tiny Leaders. Tiny Leaders was a dismal failure, and I tried to promote the format. I love new formats, but it was more of a mismanagement than anything. The people that created Tiny Leaders did a horrendous job of keeping up with like a ban list, keeping up with the metagame, keeping up with trying to promote the format, and then it just finally died. And I can't even find a Tiny. I finally broke my last Tiny Leader deck apart, which was like a Shuyan prowess deck. So anyway, I'm hoping that Pauper is here to stay. A lot of people have asked me to play some Pauper format on MTGO. I'm going to start doing that. Again, I had a lot of fun with my deck that went 1-4, but still had a lot of fun in starting to figure out kind of the metagame and how to combat it. So you're going to see some new brews from me trying to use, spoiler alert, I really, really like Morsel Theft. I think the card is amazing. It's a prowl card that works with Tribal Rogues, which I think is a really, really cool deck. Had some success just in testing with it, and I'm hoping to actually build like a nice little Rogue Tribal, like Fairy Rogue Tribal, and showcase that. So again, I'd appreciate the comments in the comment section below. I think it's a good time to start investing in some of these staple Pauper cards. They're still pretty low, and they have nowhere to go but up. I highly doubt that there will ever be a crash in the Pauper format. Anyway, this has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.